Hey there, welcome to the Flute 360 podcast. I'm Dr. Heidi K. Begay, and I'm a flutist, educator, coach, and podcaster. My God-given mission is to serve you. I am passionate about guiding you, the modern-day flutist, to discover your unique voice on and off the stage. The goal of this podcast is to help you thrive, both as an artist and as a musicpreneur. Go ahead and grab some espresso, your favorite notepad, and let's get to it. Today's episode 184 is titled, Let's Talk Music Business with Sarah Whitney. Hey there, welcome back to the Flute 360 podcast. Merry Christmas. Thank you so much for being here with me today during this holiday season. It's a wonderful time to reflect, to take some much needed R&R, and hopefully spend some time with loved ones. I pray that you are well during this time, and I know that it's been a crazy year. Be safe, take lots of R&R if you need it, and stay healthy. So before we dive into today's conversation with the unstoppable Sarah Whitney, I want to direct your attention to an amazing offer that I have right now. When you use your CORP20 discount code, you receive 20% off of the corporate sponsorship video class. That's CORP20 at HeidiKBegay.com. If you are a musician who podcasts, you want to start bringing in another stream of income through your podcast show. Why would you want to do that? Well, there are so many benefits to obtaining corporate sponsorships. 1, your production costs get covered. 2, you get to build lasting, long-term relationships with some amazing people within the music industry. And last but not least, it could really boost your show to give your show even more credibility to your listeners and to your community. There's a slew of benefits of why you would want to tap into this stream. And you already know that producing a podcast requires some investment. So let's put some money back into your wallet today. This corporate sponsorship video is something that I'm really proud of. I have put it together with my own hands, and Eric and I have edited the video, and there's a beautiful production quality to the video and to the PDF. This information is something that was not taught to me. I had to figure it out on my own. So the teacher inside of me just wanted to teach you all of the strategies that I've learned along the way to make your path that much easier. So this CORP20 code is valid from now until December 31st. You have 7 days left. I hope you use it. And please enjoy this conversation now with myself and Sarah Whitney. Thanks. Hey there, Flute 360er. Welcome back to another Flute 360 conversation. I am sitting here virtually with my new friend, Sarah Whitney, who is our wonderful guest today. She does all the things. She's a violinist, a coach for musicians. She is in a string quintet. She performs and puts together concert series. And hats off to you, Sarah, because woo! You are an amazing woman, and I just love watching you from afar and now a little closer.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited about this conversation.
Yeah, we were having a pre-interview talk, and we were shooting ourselves in the foot thinking, oh, shoot, this should have been recorded because we were talking about some real big gems.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep the big gems going, you know.
I love it. We were talking about audio production and audio equipment and time management. So you're right. We're going to have to reel it back into the actual recorded conversation.
Exactly. I know. Imagine like being a fly on the wall in musicians' conversations when they don't know. I guess that's kind of what we're going to do here, though. We'll just chit chat and, I'll share it all.
Nice. Yes. So I totally agree. I think that really good interviews or conversations via podcasts or any platform is when you feel like a fly on the wall. When you, the listener, can really just kind of sit up there and peek in and notice two friends talking in an informal way, but about real topics, like real conversations, real pain points that affect our lives, and just sit down and chat about these things. I think that's when the conversation is just like perfecto,
Definitely. I totally agree. Yeah.
So we must have gotten the memo to wear animal print today.
Yes. Something you should know about me. I have a few too many animal print, sweaters, things. For me, it's animal print, fur, and fringe. I don't know where it came from.
Well, you had two F's there, fringe and fur.
Fringe and fur, exactly. Yeah. If you looked at my wardrobe, you'd see a common thread.
I love it. Well, at least you are consistent,
Yeah.
I think, style. I think I went and hung out at some like music festival somewhere, and one of my new flute friends was like, Heidi likes clean lines. So I feel, I'm like, you're not wrong. So if you open up my closet, things are very basic pieces that can be used and interchanged in different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I've been thinking a lot about design because I just moved into a new apartment, and my apartment's getting painted actually later this week. And so I've been picking colors. So I've been going down these rabbit holes of like color stories and all this stuff, and sort of thinking about like my design, like what colors do I gravitate towards? Like it seems like any paint store I go into, I go towards the blues, like always the blues. And I'm learning about warm blues and cool blues, and does that affect your mood? I mean, I've really gone down the rabbit hole.
Sounds like it.
Yes.
Well, there is a thing of color psychology.
Yeah.
I think orange induces hunger.
Hunger?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I think when you see the color orange, you start getting hungry. I could be wrong. I'm sure there's some. Yeah.
I've heard things like that. I've heard that red can make you anxious, and blue, I think, is supposed to be calming. Like maybe certain types of blue. But I don't know. So I figure my office, I'm going to make it blue, my bathroom blue. I want to be very like relaxed and calm and I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. We'll see. I'll let you know when I decide. But actually, I just submitted the colors to my landlord today, and he was making fun of me because I was very much okay, I'm going to think about it. And he was like, Sarah, he's like, these are just colors on your wall. I was like, I know, but it has to be right. And he was like, I think you're taking this a little too seriously. I was like, no, it has to be right. So I'll let you know how it goes. Well, I guess it's just, attention to detail.
Yeah.
And totally.
So the blue that I gravitate towards is teal.
Ooh, that's a good one. I love teal. You can't see. If you saw my, oh no, they're in the other room. I have some shades, curtains that are teal in the other room.
Okay. Yeah, I have teal curtains in my room.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good awesome color.
It is. I feel like it has good energy. It's not too subtle, but it's also not too loud.
Ooh, I like it.
Yeah.
What do colors say about yourself and your personality, right? I'm sure there's something there.
There's got to be blogs and podcasts about that for sure. There's got to be a quiz. There's a quiz. What do your color preferences say about your personality?
Yeah. Oh, shoot. Well, speaking of podcasts, I want to make sure that I'm highlighting you beautifully through this podcast talk. And the one thing, let me back up. There are a lot of things of why I wanted to have you and bring you onto the 360 show. Congratulations. You are the first violinist.
Yay. Oh, amazing. Yay. I made the cut.
I love it. No, I think it's really cool to, Eric Branner came on and he's a guitarist. I've talked with Jason Heath and he's, a contrabassist. Yeah. So it's really cool. Flute is very niche. What we do in our own little sub instrument groups is so niche. But when we get to come in and blur those lines and say, oh, we're going to talk to a guitarist and a violinist, that's really cool. So yeah, thank you for being here. And let's first start off with the Ultimate Music Business Summit, because that's how our worlds collided. Yeah. So last year we were both presenters. through UMBS 2021, and the founder is our mutual friend, Dr. Garrett Hope.
Yes.
How
Love
did you?
what he's doing. Yeah.
Yeah. How did you meet Garrett?
I actually got introduced to him by a friend
Okay.
last year, I think specifically for the event, actually. Yeah.
Oh.
So that was sort of how we connected. And then we jumped on the phone and I was like, you are amazing people. Like, this is great.
So I think we're living in like parallel universes because like a lot of your people are my people. And so that's why I had to like, what was it? About a month ago, I said, Sarah, we need to just like talk, get on a phone call and just like meet because you're living your world with these people, Jane, Joe, Maria, Jose, and I know these people too. But then you and I had never really kind of crossed paths.
Yeah.
So,
totally. Oh, I think we have so many mutual friends. I mean, we're just like, parallel universes is the perfect way to put it. If you could see my hands right now, I'm making a visual, but I guess listeners probably can't see it.
That's okay. Oh, shoot. I love it. So yes, I met Garrett also through UMBS 2021 when he asked me to be a presenter. So hats off to him to bring these people together. And I think that is a really strong characteristic of a good leader. You know, when you kind of this analogy of like a zipper, like almost like the leader is at the tab of the zipper and pulling the prongs and the people are the prongs and they just go zip, right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think what Garrett has done and created is absolutely amazing. And I mean, and one thing I really love about the event, well, last year's event, and obviously it's coming up this year too in January, is just the scope that he has, his big vision for it. I remember when I first spoke to him, he's like, I have this huge vision about how many people we want to reach. And this is, I didn't know him very well when we first connected. You know, I looked him up, but really his just huge, his dreaming big, you know, to say, let's make a big impact with this. And here's how we're going to do it. And here's all the people we're going to reach. And it was just amazing. He really, the sky's the limit with him. And he's, you know, has proof that he can really create something huge and create a big impact.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. But at the same time, like he can't do it alone. And I've heard him say that time and time again. So him onboarding presenters like yourself and Jason Heath and Arthur Brewer, a lot of our mutual friends, it's really cool to see all of us come together and uplift this summit and make it what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, no. It takes more than one person to create, well, you know, to create what he's able to pull off. Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah. So speaking of your part of UMBS 2022, what's your presentation title?
I am doing a presentation on imposter syndrome. I think the official title is How to Let Go of Imposter Syndrome So You Can Stop Selling Yourself Short.
Ooh, I like that. Now,
it's one of my favorite topics.
Is it because you are a coach for musicians? Is that like one of the big setbacks that you see your clients go through?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that, I mean, imposter syndrome, if you're not familiar with the term, basically is sort of this idea that someone's going to find you out, that you're not good enough to be doing what you're doing. It can be sort of looped in with self-doubt and questioning and fear about really truly stepping out into who you want to be or what you want to create. And absolutely, I see this, I would say, you know, with maybe even all of my clients, and I say that because it's sort of something that you will all experience in your life. And I have it as well. I'm the first to say that no one is immune from these feelings of self-doubt or questioning. I think that what I believe is that successful people, as I mentioned, they still have this self-doubt or these feelings of imposter syndrome, but what sets successful people apart is how you deal with it and having tools to deal with it. Part of that is the acceptance that it will come. I think sometimes people say to me, I wish I could just get rid of the self-doubt, or like, I'll be ready when I don't have self-doubt or the fear is gone. I think that's a myth. Like, you're never going to get there. And if you can start to realize that these feelings will happen, and it's not a bad thing. Like I said, I have it, and everybody really encounters these, even the most successful people in the world. I mean, you can read stories about, you know, Seinfeld and anyway, but there's quotes and instances of some of quote, like the most successful people or people that have had huge success opening up about this. And so I think the challenge is dealing with the self-doubt when it pops up and having tools to do so. And that's the secret. Like that's really what sets people apart.
I love it. No, and you're definitely right, because of the 100+ people I've interviewed through Flute 360. I mean, these are some big names, like the Amy Porters and the Carol Winsenses. But the one specific conversation that comes to mind is my conversation with Jennifer Gunn, who is the piccoloist through the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. And I'm doing air quotes. She has just a bachelor's degree. And in that conversation, she point blank said, someone's going to find me out. Like, I feel like I didn't earn enough degrees. I'm like, girlfriend, you've got one of the most prestigious piccolo positions in the world. And the fact that you were able to achieve such a goal with a bachelor's degree. And I remember her specifically saying, like, I didn't do enough and I don't have enough degrees and someone's going to find me out. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And that was mind blowing for me, just to recognize that, like what you said, like the Seinfelds of the world, people who have achieved so much, right? They still even kind of battle with that. And so it brings it, I guess, I don't know what I'm looking to say, but it grounds me just knowing that we're kind of all in this together.
Yes, absolutely. And I think one of like the foundations that I really stand by as a coach is to really start having these conversations more and sort of normalize these thoughts that we're all having. But I think sometimes it can be seen as something like, oh, don't talk about that, or don't let someone know, and I understand, of course, there are certain people that are okay talking about it and comfortable opening up, and others that aren't. And that's okay. But what I hope to do as a leader in the field and through my work is sort of normalize this. So at the very least, people can just recognize that they're not alone, and then also have tools to deal with it. I mean, this is what I work with my clients on, and really take the stigma out of this idea that if you have self-doubt, like you're not as good, like it's as a bad thing. Like if you have self-doubt, you're not as talented or you're not as capable, or because that's simply not true. And I think that, let's talk about the things we're all thinking about. Why not? Right? Like, let's just be real.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I was having a similar conversation with another violinist. Her name is Bronwyn Beth, and she's the podcast.
Bronwyn,
She's the podcast host of The Misfit Musician. And I was talking on her show last week, and she was talking about imposter syndrome. And she had asked me, well, what is the first step towards minimizing that imposter syndrome? And I don't nearly hold a candle to your work being a coach for musicians. Like I'm a newbie in this field, right? And so the first thing, just working with a handful of people that I have worked with this past year, the thing that I come to is it's how you talk to yourself and the work between the ears, right? So I'm just
between the ears. Love that phrase. Yes.
Ooh, okay. Right. Yeah. Because I mean, like, for example, for me, I noticed a lot of negative talk going on in my own head. I think probably that started really popping up maybe during the terminal degree or postdoctorate. And I sat with that for a while, and I recognized, like, wait a second, Heidi, take a step back. Do you talk to your sister that way? Do you talk to your friend that way? I'm like,
right.
I would never say that to Catherine. I would never say that to my best friend, Afton. So why would I talk to myself? Right. So anyways, I'm going down a new rabbit hole, but do you kind of resonate with that? Like, because you've mentioned a couple times, like the tools, we need tools, right? So like, what is the number one tool, or what is like the first step to minimizing that negative talk and minimizing the imposter syndrome?
Yes, absolutely. Well, let me think. I mean, there's a couple tools, and I think sometimes let me think about, okay, This is good, actually. Well, I love what you said, because I think it really has a lot to do with our self-talk. Would you say the voices between the ears or something? I love that. Which is powerful, because I think on some level we can say, oh, well, I said like one mean thing to myself, like what's the big deal? But it's really more than that. It's the accumulation, right? It's the accumulation of these things over and over and over again. And what are you reinforcing? Right? Because that's what will become what you believe about yourself and your reality, right? But as far as a tool, I think it's interesting. You said, what do we need to do to minimize those negative voices in our head, I guess, right? But I think that, first of all, like those voices aren't necessarily going to disappear, right? Like this idea of, well, you said minimize. I agree with that, but it's sort of like, what if we shifted the lens and looked at it a different way?
Okay.
And because when we think about things that we aren't happy with in our life, in our career, places we aren't yet, or things we haven't done yet, things that we don't like, aren't happy with, we always know where those are, right? And you never have to search for them. We always have that list. We always can find it. Like, it's never a secret, right? And that's the way the human brain is designed. We will always be aware of those things, really, without having to search for them. But the part of it that oftentimes I see people forget is to balance it by being present to the things that are working. Okay. So I think in our lives, there's things that don't work and there's things that do work, right? But we are so quick to forget the things that are going well, the things we have done well, the successes we've had, right? They're always there. And I don't know if you can relate, or any of the listeners, but we have a successful performance or something that's successful. Maybe we book a new client or whatever it is, right? And we're so quickly on to the next thing that we don't actually really acknowledge that something went really well, right? It's always like, well, but either it's like, okay, what's next? Or it's like, well, but I could have done this better. Or maybe I could have charged more or whatever. Like, we're always like one step ahead. So what's something tangible you can do? I think it's really, how do you start to be present to what's not going well? You will always be present to that. But what is going well? Start to make a list, right? And this may sound like, what? You want me to do what? But here's why making a list and actually writing it down. Because we process information differently when we write it, right? Rather than when we think it. There's science behind this. I couldn't give you all like the really geeky stats about it, but I do know that it's true.
Nice.
But how present are you to the things that are going well? Are you spending time thinking about these things, acknowledging yourself for them? And like I said, it's a balancing act, right? Because those things are there. And I've worked with, clients who say, well, but everything's, not going well, whatever, all these things. And they say, okay, well, I did this one thing. And then it's sort of like it can become a snowball effect. It's sort of like a muscle. Once you start to see one thing, right, then it's like, okay, well, yes, that was good too. Oh, then there's this. And it really, it's less about the actual thing that went well and exercising the muscle in your brain that is starting to notice it. And if you start to do that throughout your life, you will have a more equilibrium. Is that the word I'm looking for?
I think so.
You will be more equal with seeing the things that aren't working. Okay, good. We need that. We want to improve, assess, all that. But also seeing the things that are working. And then the scale will be balanced.
Ooh, I love that. Yes. I think we were just talking about that through the Pivoting Musicians podcast that I started with Garrett. And I don't know what episode we're on. The podcast is in baby form. I think we're on episode 6 or 7. And we were talking about pivoting and how it could feel like you're in a valley. And in this valley, before you decide like what mountain peak you want to climb next, I remember one of the tips that I offered was assess and take an inventory of the space around you and ask yourself those questions. What's working? What's not working? Who's here? Who can you bring into your orbit? What's your next goal? And I think as musicians, we are such go-getters and do. But I think there needs to be a lot of what you're talking about. Take an inventory, ask these questions, journal, write it out, slow down time.
Yes.
To process, reflect, meditate before you just go to the next thing. Yeah. I'm not perfect around this little tip. I try to carve out 10 to 30 minutes every morning just to think.
Mm-hmm.
No,
Love that.
and it really sets a mood for the day rather than jumping in. Just because I tend to cut, like, what's that saying with the cutting? Measure twice, cut once.
Oh boy. I don't know
Yeah.
the saying.
I actually think I nailed it that time. That was a total.
Great. Love it.
This idea, because I go right into cutting, right? My grandfather was a carpenter, right? And so like he would measure that out, measure it out again before he cut, because once you cut, that wooden board, it's now cut. You can't glue that sucker back together if you made a mistake in your measurements. But I tend to be the person who just cuts, like I just go, I get an idea and I just do it, right?
Yeah.
Rather than taking that time to measure twice, right? So anyways, all of that's connected to this idea of, I resonate with what you said, take inventory, assess, ask these questions, write it down. I know that those are some very valuable tips. So thank you so much. Oh my gosh, that was beautiful.
My name is Eric Branner. I'm the CEO and founder of Fons.com. I'm also a third-generation music teacher. We started Fons because I desperately needed software to run my music school more efficiently and professionally. Fons' design is sleek, modern, and minimalist, but its focus is on maximizing your revenue, building your business, and facilitating trust with your students. In a recent survey, the average studio owner said using Fons saved them 10 hours each month in admin tasks, and 88% of the teachers said using Fons significantly improved their job satisfaction. Perhaps the coolest part about Fons is the community of providers we're building and how we're working together to elevate the amazing work we get to do as independent music teachers. Sign up today for your free trial at Fons.com. Book a demo with our team and see all the ways Fons can help you earn more while creating a greater impact on your community. Thanks.
Well, absolutely. And I love what you said about sort of taking time, even if it's 10 minutes a day or if it's some sort of reflection process. And the quote that you said that I remember what it meant, but I can't remember what it was exactly. But my question is, how do you want your experience to go? Right? Whether it's like the experience of your day, but then of course the days make up your week, right? And the weeks make up your month, the months make up your year, the years make up your life. So I think that's the question that I think is really important. How do you want your experience to go? Are you being intentional about it? Or are you reacting to everything that happens? And like I said, we can't, of course, control everything that happens in our lives. There's external things that come at us. We're not in control of them. But I think the intentionality is something that I think is really, really powerful. And even what you said, it doesn't have to take a lot of time. And, when people say to me, oh, well, but like, I don't have time to write or journal or whatever it is. And I think that I don't think there's one right way to do it, but are you being intentional? Is that important enough to you? And can you see how being intentional about how you want your experience to go is essentially you choosing the experience of your life? Like, it's not just about today, this next hour, right? It's the accumulation. And I think there's so much power in that.
What I'm hearing in that too is creating good habits, right? Because success isn't by mistake, right? You have to intentionally say, okay, if I want to win that concerto competition, I need to intentionally set aside X amount of minutes a day to practice, even if it's in 30-minute splices, right, throughout the day. And you're intentional with that practice routine before said date of recording or before said date of the actual concerto competition, whatever the case may be. So when people are high performers and they have goals like that, they have to be intentional with their time, because how else do you do it? You can't, absolutely. Right? Yeah.
Totally.
So I love that that's your UMBS presentation. Yeah. And that's going to go.
It's one of my favorite topics, honestly, to talk about.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, like, who knew? But
right.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. So if you're a 360 listener and you're checking out this episode is actually going to air on Christmas Day, which is really woohoo. Sarah and I were like kind of thinking, do we come on camera with Santa Claus hats or Mrs. Claus hats, right? But we both are moving. So you're you're in the middle of a move too.
Yeah, I just moved. Wait, what's the day? Today is the 14th, I think.
I think so.
I think it's 14th. I moved about a week ago. Yeah, just over a week ago into this apartment. So things are coming along, but I mean, it's always a bit of a process, and I'm impatient and want it all done, and I still have to work, and so I can't just drop everything. But no, it's great. And did you buy a house recently?
We did.
That's right. I saw that. Congrats. That's amazing.
Thank you. And you are the first interview being recorded in the house.
Oh, you're in the new house. Oh, amazing. I love it. Oh, that's so great. How is it?
Oh, it's great. I love the fact that we've decided to root ourselves, because a lot of my career and his career was, okay, we have to get this certification. We have to go and get this degree. And we were jumping across the country and actually the globe for the 13 years that we've been married. And so it's been, a whirlwind, and the nomad in me was very happy. But now as I'm getting older, I'm like, can I just have my bed
oh my gosh,
in one place where I know where everything is and not live out of a suitcase?
Oh gosh, Heidi, I can relate so much. I mean, I think maybe you know this, but I was in New York City for 12 years and I moved up to Boston just over a year ago. And during the pandemic. And I think I can really relate to that, because I used to tour about 30 to 40% of the year. I was on planes constantly, hotels, everything. And I mean, it was amazing. Like, I performed all over the world, and really it's been incredible experiences. But during the pandemic, one of the things I really realized is when my touring disappeared, right? And I had the opportunity to be in one place for more than 2.5 weeks or whatever, it really, I had sort of that same desire that you mentioned, and grounding myself and moving to Boston had a lot to do with that. My family's up here. I always knew that I wanted to end up in the Boston area, and that I knew that Manhattan was not forever for me. I always knew that. I loved New York. It was great, but I never was one of those Manhattan lifers. I have friends that are like, I'm here forever. I always knew that wasn't me. And just moving up here, having a little bit of a slower pace, being grounded, I mean, I totally hear you.
That's amazing. So you've been your own music boss for some time now. How long? How long has that journey been?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it sort of depends how you define music boss, but essentially, I think, I mean, as a freelancer, I've run my own business ever since I graduated school.
Okay.
Long time ago. Was that over 10 years ago?
You don't have to say years.
No, it's fine. It was about, I think it was 12 years ago. Well, actually, about 12 years ago, because I was in New York, throughout that whole time. But I think, you're sort of alluding to my coaching business?
Yes.
Yes, that's what I thought. Yeah. So, my coaching business has a little bit of an interesting story. I guess it sort of depends on how I define like when it started. But I mean, I've been coaching for years, and the way it started really was very organically. I didn't necessarily have this vision that I was going to have a musician's coaching business when I first started doing this work. And really it came from, I went through a big injury about in 2012 and really sort of knocked me out of the scene. I lost all my confidence. I really couldn't see possibility for myself as a professional violinist. It was a really challenging time. And going through that whole phase, long story short, I ended up working with a coach, a musician's coach. And she was really the person that helped me turn the corner into getting myself back into a place where I could see possibility, where I could build back up my confidence and really feel like I could make things happen, because I really lost that during that time. And throughout all of that work with her, I also realized I had a fascination with human behavior. I started studying it a lot. I started studying a lot of mindset stuff. I also have quite a knack for productivity. And there's also some, mindset and human behavior linked into that. And I started studying all that stuff like crazy and just reading about it. I started a blog called The Productive Musician. This was a while ago, and just sort of sharing this information. And one, I was just really excited about it, but also realized people were asking me like what I had done. People knew I was injured. And then when I was really thriving, they're like, well, Sarah, like you've made this transformation. What did you do? And I was like, I learned all these things that I didn't know, that I never learned in school. I didn't even know they existed. And so I started sharing them because people were like, oh, that's amazing. I want that. And then I had the blog. I started getting asked to do like lectures at universities and things. I would share my injury story, but also some of the teachings I'd learned about mindset and strategy. And then it sort of morphed into business strategy, like all of the things in my career. I realized people wanted this information. So people would say, hey, can I hire you to help me? And it just became this organic thing. I worked with Concert Artists Guild for a little while and their roster members, or their roster, their musicians on their roster. But it was in 2019 that I actually worked with a business coach to really learn how to really build a business in the way that I wanted. So it's, depends on your definition of when it started, but that's when I really learned the behind the scenes between building a one-on-one coaching business, like the real business, like in the thick of the business stuff and the strategy behind it. But yeah, so that's sort of the short story. Was that short or was that long?
No, it was mid. It was perfect.
Yeah,
I love it. And a lot of these things do organically evolve on their own, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, I mean, obviously you're taking the lead of it and you have a direction and you hired coaches, right? To be very intentional and to implement these strategies, right? So it's not a fluke, but just the whole process of it, like you're the ringleader, but at the same time, it has a life of its own, you know, and you kind of like nurture and walk together.
Yeah.
I
love that.
Yeah.
It has. I mean, when I share the story of the progression, it sort of, reminds me of that. And I think it has a lot to do with, I think so much of my career, really, I couldn't have predicted. Actually, all of it. Let's just be real, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And I think even with the coaching, it was something that I really listened to sort of my gut or my inner wisdom or whatever you want to call it, like as these opportunities were happening and realizing that I was really good at this work. I was really able to help people. And it was sort of something that I kept exploring. And I think curiosity had a lot to do with it. I said, how can I feel feeling there's something I could do with this. There's something I can do. How do I make this work? And it was sort of just that exploration and experimentation, I'll say, actually, because there was a lot of experimentation when it comes to how I built things to get where I am now.
Okay. Yeah. And that word curious, I think, is vital because I think as, putting these two worlds together, like you being a coach for musicians, right, and a violinist, I think us as instrumentalists, most of us listening to this show are instrumentalists. We have to be extremely curious in the practice room. Yes. Right? Like, why does this work? Why does it not work? What can I do to make this sound better? And then also in the teaching studio, right? We have to be curious of like why and what's going on with my students, right? And so that curiosity kind of bled over into the business side of things for you. And I love that.
Absolutely. I love that. I mean, I think, musicians, we're great problem solvers. You're right. We do it in the practice room all the time and in our teaching. And I think what I love to do with myself and also with my clients is, sort of translating those skills. How do we translate those skills that you already have, right, into really crafting the life and the career you want, the bigger picture, and recognize that, I think musicians are so highly trained and have so many skills that can be translated to having a good business, right? Having a thriving business, making the income you want, creating the projects you want. I think that sometimes it's easy to forget. We can think, oh, I just have a music degree, but so many of those skills, the discipline, the problem solving, the critical thinking, all those things, right, can be translated to so many other things. I'm not necessarily talking about leaving the music world, but I'm talking about really looking at the bigger picture of your life and career and identifying the areas that you want to improve or change, right?
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't agree more. So the reason why I bring up the coaching aspect of your career is because when I watch you, through your Facebook Lives on Tuesdays, Congratulations. You've been very consistent. You said
almost a year.
Yeah, for a whole year. Bravo.
And every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern. Yeah.
Yep. Every Tuesday. So that's 10 a.m. my time. Every now and then, if I'm on Facebook at the time, I'll come in and check in and listen to what you're talking about. But the reason why I bring up the coaching aspect of your career is because when I watch you through these Tuesday Facebook Lives, I'm just baffled in a very good way, because I'm like, how the heck can she articulate these concepts so well? Like, and I was wondering, did you get, not that you have to be, but did she get certified to be a career coach? Do you know what I mean? Or is it because of her experience that she's done it enough where she's like, okay, and then you can go, these are steps 1, 2, 3, and you can articulate it so well, because like that is not easy. That is not easy. And you do it so well where it almost seems extremely natural. And then you think, oh, I could do that. And you try it out and you're like, Like when you watch a pastor give a sermon, you're like, oh, wow. Like, he's just rattling off, or she's rattling off, these scriptures, and there's a beautiful flow. I could do that. And you try it, or that's an odd example, but you watch these professionals do their thing, and that they are supposed to be in that position or hold that role, because then when you give it a try and try on that shoe, you're like, shucks, they make that look really easy.
Oh, well, thank you, Heidi. Thank you for those kind words. That really means a lot to me.
Yeah.
Well, I guess as far as if I have any official training, no, I don't necessarily have official training. I think that a lot of what I do have is experience, though. I have a lot of experience in public speaking. I've been doing lectures and talks at universities forever. It feels like not forever, but for many, many years. And I think that has really helped me hone my skills. I'll never forget the first lecture I did. What year was that? I can't remember. But I mean, I was up all night for days, with outlines and this and that. So I mean, it didn't always start as articulate and clear as I can be now. But so that was part of it, just really doing it. And even with the Facebook Lives, actually, honestly, I started doing those weekly last January. And I mean, I haven't watched the ones in January and February. Well, actually, I did. They're okay, but I would over prepare for them. I would spend hours, getting ready. And now I can, at 10 o'clock, 10:15, sort of sit down, put down some thoughts, and I'm really good at crafting something faster. Okay. But also, I will say that something that I have learned about myself when it comes to the things I coach on, we're talking about mindset strategies, we're talking about business strategies, productivity hacks, all of this stuff. I'm very much in I consider my genius zone, if you will. And I spent a lot of time sort of tracking and really figuring out what that was for me. When I was working with my coach and trying to figure out how I was going to craft moving forward in my career and everything, a lot of it was tracking and noticing when I was most inspired. And what I started to notice was that, and I believe actually, that inspiration is not something you have to find. You have to notice it. Because sometimes when I work with people, they'll say, well, if they say, I don't know what I want to do. I like playing an orchestra. I like doing this, but I'm not sure what does that really mean? I have to find what inspires me the most. I think you don't. What you have to do is notice it. And if you heighten your awareness around what you're doing, you'll start to notice. So for me, what I started to notice is when I was reading, studying productivity, I was like, I could just eat this stuff up. And when I had to then talk about it with someone or share, I was so articulate. I was so clear. And I really had a good way of just translating the information, because this was me in my most inspired state. I mean, I could talk about this stuff all day long and never get tired. So I think that's a combination of my experience with speaking, but also just for me, it's just something I love and just comes freely and clearly to me.
Okay. No, I love that. And again, this element of awareness, being aware, taking inventory, noticing. That's really cool.
I think there's so much happening around us all the time, so much feedback we can get. And whether it's starting to figure out what inspires you, another way I talk about that is what gives you energy. And I think, have you ever had a conversation with someone that just drains you and you just sort of are like tired or, right? We've all been there. On the other side, have you ever had a conversation that energized you? An example I like to use is, say you're at a party, it's late, you're tired, you're sort of like, okay, I'm done. You're saying your goodbyes. And all of a sudden you start having a conversation with someone and then you get energized. What are you talking about, right? You were tired 5 minutes ago, right? But you've gotten energy. So what brings you energy? And like I said, you have to notice it, right? Whether it's certain, for me, it was like noticing certain topics I was talking about when it came to productivity, mindset, all this stuff. Maybe it's certain types of music. Maybe it's being around certain types of people. What gives you energy and what sucks your energy? And if you can really start to notice this, you can make decisions based on it, right? What do you want to spend more time doing? What do you want to spend less time doing? Or who do you want to spend less time with? And this can turn into sort of a roadmap for you as you sort of craft your career and your life in the most inspired way.
Yes. And the episode that airs before your episode goes out is Catherine Eminent, and she talks about noticing the breadcrumbs. And so I'm kind of connecting these conversations in my head and I'm articulating it out loud so that way people can maybe make that connection between what you said and what Catherine said. I think there's a lot of parallels there.
Yes,
you know,
love that.
And she was talking about, but you have to take a step back and notice the breadcrumbs, right? So that way, again, you can see the landscape, right? Like what this breadcrumb, for example, like being an orchestral flutist isn't working out for you, but what are your skill sets? What is around you? Take a step back, take an inventory of the space that you're in, kind of like what we were talking about at the beginning of the conversation. And then notice like, oh, this breadcrumb, like what you're saying, like, ooh, this taste or this one gives me life. I really like this. And then you kind of follow that trail to the gingerbread house and notice, and notice like, this is my path. And this is what energizes me. This is what gives me life. And everyone's path is going to look different, right? And so it kind of goes into maybe the last thing that we talk about today is then if you know that your path is unique and you understand that your skill sets are unique, it's really hard then to compare yourself to other musicians because there's no need to. I mean, everybody is their own unique thumbprint, right? And so like when you know that you have your own fingerprint to offer this world in a very unique, swirly way, why would you have to compare yourself to Jane or Joe?
Yes, absolutely. I totally hear you. And I think that's really important to bring up and talk about because your definition of success may not be the same as your colleagues or your friends or maybe even your mentor or teacher. That happens too. I think that depending on your training and your circumstances, right, we're surrounded by what other people are doing. And it can be really easy to think, well, I should do that. No, I should do that. That will make me happy. But that's someone else's definition of success. So what is yours? And what we've been talking about with the noticing the energy, what gives you energy, and the breadcrumbs thing that you mentioned, which is so awesome. How do you start to craft your definition of success and then build things around that? And I think, notice comparison. And I will say, comparison isn't always bad. And how can you leverage it? I think we have a choice with how you use comparison or how you let it exist in your life. And of course, the comparison, like, quote, rabbit hole, right? Where maybe you go on social media, you start seeing all these things that other people are doing. Maybe it makes you feel bad about yourself or like, I'm not doing that yet. Why am I not there? Totally real. Like, I've been there. You all can probably relate to that. So we have to notice that. And, is that serving you? But more importantly, can you leverage it? Is it possible that the comparison game is actually an opportunity for you to see what is possible, to see what other people are doing? Can you actually use comparison as a way to get inspired? Wow, look at that project that person is doing. I would love to do something like, look what's possible. Maybe there's some unique, I'll never forget, even during COVID, right? People were getting really creative with how to present live music. And I remember I saw something, I think it was in Germany, in an airport lobby. It's not the airport lobby, but like the whatever, where you check in, the ticket counters, like they're always huge, right? They were doing 10-minute concerts for one person. So there's one musician and one person that were spaced, 10 feet away, and they did 10-minute live concerts. I saw that and I said, oh my gosh, live concerts. Okay, 10 minutes. That's not long, but we were this was like height of the pandemic. No one could do anything. No one could see live music. And I was like, that's amazing. What an idea. And, I created I created Beyond the Notes minis, which was inspired by that idea to bring live music to audiences during COVID. Okay. But you can choose, how you want to use comparison, right? And is it possible to leverage it? And then isn't that that's amazing to be able to do that, right?
Oh my goodness. Yes. And the connection that I'm making right now is something that my business coach told me yesterday. So I was really kind of my feathers were a little ruffled on something that had happened in my business like a month ago. And I said, all right, I'm going to dish it out. I'm going to tell you what happened. This was not the outcome that I wanted. What the heck, right? And she goes, yes, it didn't pan out the way you had wanted it to pan out, but notice all the information that you gathered because of it. And let's use that. So same kind of thing. It's different, but the same, right? Yeah. That there are these opportunities to, again, be aware, take inventory, ask these questions, notice what people are doing, notice what worked, what didn't work, right? And then taking that information and saying, oh, this is possible. Oh, I could do this for next time. Or I hope that makes sense. I think there's a connection there, but in my brain, there's a connection.
Absolutely. I think in many ways, you have a choice, right? We get to choose how we use the information. Yes. And look, I get it. Like if you're feeling down about something and there's time for that too. There's space for that too. I'm not saying that we have to constantly be on and in this state of, you see what I mean? I think I don't want to diminish that. There's space for that too, right? But how often do you want to spend there? And do you know how to shift it when you want to?
I love it.
And I think that that's really where the power lies in this work, or the work that I do with my clients, because that is what really, that's when I talk about tools, right? I've mentioned do you have the tools to shift things when you want to, when you need to? Because that puts you in the driver's seat, right? That puts you in the one that's driving the car. There again, made the same, whatever, twice. But I think there's a lot of power in that. And, if you're listening and you're wondering if this is possible, well, what would be possible for you if you could? Can you see this possibility? Do you see possibility with that? And I think going back to a word you said, which I love, the curiosity. Can you get curious about it? Could it go another way? Could it be another way?
I love it. It's phenomenal. Yeah. Oh my goodness, Sarah. So where can people find you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, you can find me a bunch of places. I am on Instagram at The Productive Musician. I have a blog called The Productive Musician as well. You can go to my website, sarahwhitney.com, or theproductivemusician.com will get you to the blog as well. Facebook, I have a really awesome private Facebook group, and that's where I go live every week on Tuesdays at about 11 a.m.-ish Eastern. And you can find that under the Productive Musician Facebook group. I think those are all places. This is my personal profile too. It's on Facebook, and I'm very active there as well. Yes, I think that's my list. Okay.
I will definitely put the link to your Facebook group in the show notes below, and y'all need to literally request to join, because I'm a member and I love the dialogues that you initiate. I love the conversations and the questions that you propose, right? And you put out there, and you get people thinking, and people are really engaged with you and engaged with the content. And I really respect when anybody brings people together and you start those dialogues, because for me, that sort of interaction, from that comes inspiration. And, being a leader and being a pioneer like yourself within our community is, I mean, this is a very strong sentiment, but I really wholeheartedly mean this. I'm forever indebted to people like you because it's not easy what you do, and you're showing up for yourself, but you're not just showing up for yourself, you're showing up for others, and you're saying, hey guys, let's talk about these things. Like, how can we move the needle forward for you? And being a cheerleader for musicians within our community, like, thank you, Sarah. I mean, really, it's mind blowing. And, I see it and I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much, Heidi. Really, that means the world to me. And really, I'm really passionate about community and bringing people together. And like I said earlier, having conversations, normalizing these things. And I said, like, if you don't want to talk about them or be, public about them, that's fine.
Right.
I'll do all the talking. But what my goal is that no one ever feels alone and that there are resources for you if you're interested. And that's really, my goal. And yeah. Yeah.
So I'm not saying this because you're a guest on the show, and I'm not saying this because anyone's forcing me to say this. This is coming from a very good place. You guys, if you need a coach for your career, if you need somebody to help you with your productivity, if you need somebody to help assess the situation for you, I cannot recommend Sarah enough. I mean, literally, she is so articulate and a beautiful teacher and violinist, but more importantly, you have such a sweet, kind heart. And that's a treasure trove, just having all of that together packaged in one person is like finding the Holy Grail. So if you need somebody to be your cheerleader or a root for you, seriously, check out Sarah and what she's doing because her work is phenomenal.
Oh, Heidi, thank you. Thank you so, so much. Well, I appreciate that, really. And yeah, if you're listening and you want to learn more, I work one-on-one with clients. And actually, this will be going out on Christmas. I'm doing some promotions for January if you're interested in sort of kicking the new year off. And I really don't ever do this. I'm trying something new. So if you're interested, I'd be happy to chat with you. You can book a free intro call with me. No strings attached, really just a chance for us to chat and see if you might be a good fit for any of my packages. But I'd love to learn more about you. So feel free. I think, Heidi, I'll send you the link so you can include it. And then also, actually, if you're interested, I have a freebie that I will tell you all about if you're just sort of interested in getting a little bit more or learning a little bit more about the type of things that I work on with my clients. I have a guide, 4 steps for ditching imposter syndrome, and you can download that as well. It's totally free, and I'll send that link to you as well, Heidi. So yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was such an awesome conversation, and I love what you're doing, and I'm thrilled to be the first violinist.
No, the pleasure is all mine. And this was a really fun conversation. I mean, you made that easy breezy. So yeah, that was fun. We need to do it again. Definitely. And the last thing I'll throw out there, and I'm checking the website because I want to make sure that I'm saying it correctly, go to musicsummit.biz and go to the schedule. And Sarah is going to be one of 36 presenters, and she is going live on Thursday, January 6th, 2022 at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And the title of her presentation is How to Overcome Imposter Syndrome So You Can Stop Selling Yourself Short. So I think that's a great way to wrap up today's conversation from the beginning of the call till now and everything you're doing. So go check out her presentation. And yeah, that's going down January 6th.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope that the topics of imposter syndrome, music business tips, and the like have really resonated with you. Remember, you have a 20% discount off of my corporate sponsorship video class. Use your CORP20, that's CORP20, code at HeidiKBegay.com to receive your discount today. If you are a musician who podcasts and you want to start tapping into a new stream of income, then you definitely want to check out this video course and PDF. I'm always here if you have any questions, if you want to hop on a 15-minute call to see if the class is a really good fit for you, go to HeidiKBegay.com/contact and schedule a 15-minute discovery call. I'm always here for you. Let's talk about Flute.